Hey everyone! Today I'll be setting up a new bullet journal or DIY planner. Today's setup will be pretty simple and minimalistic, perfect for beginners or anyone needing to simplify their planning system. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I was an avid bullet journaler or made my own planners for 7 years up until 2025. Since then, I've switched over to dated planners, which I've been very much enjoying. So it may come as a surprise as to why I'm going back to bullet journaling all of the sudden, which I'll get more into a little bit later, but before that, let's talk about the journal that I'll be using. A few months ago, I saw that Leuchtturm released this 411-page journal and knew that I eventually wanted to get my hands on it. Since I was in a low buy phase at the time, I figured I would hold off on purchasing one since I didn't necessarily have a need for one at the time. These had been out of stock pretty much since they released, and the ones with the black covers just recently came back in stock. However, the colored covers are not currently back in stock at the time of filming this. Also, these journals are available in plain and ruled pages, but I wanted to get the dotted version. These currently only come in the A5 size and are only available in hardcover. It comes with the typical elastic closure, archiving labels, and gusseted back pocket. I'm just keeping the archiving labels in the back pocket in case I decide to use them later on. And the journal also comes with 2 ribbon bookmarks. The pages are the usual cream or off-white color, which can be much easier on the eyes when reading and writing. A couple years ago, I bought this pack of adhesive elastic pen loops from Amazon, so I'm applying one to the inside of the back cover. I typically like to add these to my Leuchtturms since they do not already come with a pen loop, and it's easier to keep a pen with the journal rather than having to carry it separately or in a pencil bag. The pen that I'll be keeping with this journal is a Uniball One gel pen in the 0.38mm size, since that's my favorite gel pen at the moment. Moving on to the inside of the front cover, I like to name all of my journals, and I decided to name this one Dawn, since it's representing the start of something new in my life, and I thought it was quite fitting. I'm using a Tombow Fudenosuke hardtip brush pen to hand letter the name. Below that, I'm taking the Uniball One and writing out my name in case I happen to accidentally leave it somewhere. Moving on, the first usable spread is an index or table of contents that you can fill out. I do plan on using this spread to keep track of specific items throughout the journal. The next page is completely blank, and then we're greeted with the first dotted page. I'm planning on leaving these 2 pages blank in case I need to create another table of contents later down the road if the first spread gets completely filled up. Turning to pages 2 and 3, this is where I'll be setting up a year overview spread. I'm using my Uniball One to write 2026 at the top. And then taking a ruler, I'm drawing 7 lines down both pages with 6 boxes vertically between them. To add some color to the spread, I'm just taking 3 Crayola Supertips markers in a soft grayish blue color palette and using them to color circles in an alternating order. Going back to the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pen, I'm writing the first 3 letters of each month on top of the circles. After that, I'm just taking my gel pen again and writing each day of the month in a calendar format next to the headers. Now, the reason why I'm creating this bullet journal is because I will be starting a new job. By the time this gets posted, I would have already started it, but I will be starting the last week of February. It actually was very sudden and definitely not something that I was anticipating when the year started. Without going into too many details, I had been working at this company for the past 4 years. One of our contracts that I had been doing a lot of work for over these past 4 years decided to end their contract with us, which essentially was going to put me out of a job. However, the company that I work for fortunately had another position that was open in a different department, which I interviewed for and thankfully was offered the job. So I'm very grateful that I'll still be with the same company and won't have to start off completely fresh with a new employer. However, this new position will have a lot more deadlines, and I'm anticipating a slightly larger workload than my previous position, which is why I wanted to create this bullet journal. Up until now, I didn't find a separate work planner necessary since I pretty much had the same exact duties and tasks that I'd have to accomplish every day in my previous position. There wasn't much that I really needed to keep track of. However, with this new position, there will be a lot more deadlines in keeping track of certain tasks that I felt like warranted a separate planner to keep everything organized. Even though January and most of February won't get used, I still wanted to include the entire year on this spread as a reference. I find these yearly spreads extremely useful in basically any planner that I use so that I can view the entire year at a glance, schedule meetings, view deadlines, and make any other plans accordingly. Moving on to the next spread, I'm creating a February monthly calendar. Like I mentioned, most of this will go unused since I'll be starting my position this last week of the month. I just wanted to include the entire month for context if I ever needed it. Although this is a work planner, I'm including Saturdays and Sundays for the completionist in me. I don't want to leave any gaps in the calendar, and I find that it just makes more sense for me to see the entire month and not just parts of it. I'm also adding the week numbers on the right side of the calendar just to keep track of what week we're in throughout the year. Left of the calendar would just be some space for notes, reminders, meetings, deadlines, anything that I'll need to keep track of throughout the month. And then, of course, for the actual calendar itself, I'd imagine that I would write any meetings, trainings, deadlines, and PTO throughout the month on the actual corresponding days. I also realized I wanted to add a bit of color to this page, but forgot to do it before writing with the gel pen. So I tried going over the gel pen with a Crayola marker, but it smeared terribly. So I decided to pass on color for the rest of this spread. As for the final page for today's setup, I'm creating a simple horizontal weekly layout. Again, just sectioning off the days of the week, and then I'm adding the week number to the top right of the page. For the weekly spreads, I did decide to just include Monday through Friday to keep it with the work week. I learned from my mistake from the previous page and added the layer of color first before writing on top of it. I used 5 different Crayola markers in this soft rosy and earthy green palette for this week of February. And then I took my gel pen and wrote the date and day on top of the color swatches. Now, the reason why I decided against a dated planner for my work planner is because of a couple things. The first one being that I wanted to have a planner and notebook in one. I'm going to be trained on a lot of new things, and I need to take notes during that time. So I wanted a place to stay organized with my tasks while also having all my notes written down in the same book. I did consider getting a Sterling Ink Common Planner since that's essentially what it is a planner and notebook all in one. However, the second reason why I went with this method instead is because I didn't want it to just be for 1 year and would rather have the time frame be indefinite. Even if I were to get an undated common planner, there would still only be 12 months and 52 weeks in the planner portion. I'd imagine this bullet journal would span a couple or maybe even a few years in this position, so I didn't want to be tied down to only having a work planner for 1 year. And later down the road when the new year comes, I'll just create a new yearly overview for 2027, a January monthly spread, and so on. Anyway, I hope that this is all making sense. I'm looking forward to having this bullet journal for a long time and with all my work plans and notes inside of it. I feel like this will be the best way to organize my workload to start, and if things need to be tweaked later down the line, the bullet journal method allows you to do that. I still plan on using my Hobonichi Techo with no changes, and I don't see this work bullet journal affecting my planning routine with that planner at all, since it's more of a personal planner and memory keeper for me anyway. I would love to know if you have any separate planners, and if so, what planners do you use? Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.